So go ahead and tell us your name.
My name is Leoma Caldwell.
And your birthday is?
July 22, 1935.
Okay. Where were you born?
Sickles, Oklahoma.
Okay.
That is in Caddo County. Anadarko is our county seat out there.
Yeah. And your parents were?
Jesse E. Norville from Maitland, Missouri. My daddy was Samuel W. Short, and he was from the Carolinas, moved here when he was around 13 years old by train.
Oh, wow. Huh. Give us some things that you remember about your parents growing up.
Well, I'll tell you right now, we grew up out there in western Oklahoma. We didn't have electricity, and we did not have running water. We had a telephone with about 8 or 12 on a party line, and we drew the water out of a well. I was born in 35. We moved to Hugo, Oklahoma then in 1942, April of 1942. And we moved out in the house, which is what we call the Trula Mullins Rock House out east of town. And we lived there for 3 years. My dad got a permanent railroad job with the Frisco Railroad. So he moved us out here. He was in Hugo from 38 to 42 and then moved us.
Okay.
And so growing up, we did farm work. We milked cows, fed the chickens, slopped the hogs. We killed the animals we ate. We grew our own produce food. We had what you call a cellar, a root cellar, which was cold, dug in the ground. I went to my first 6 months of school there at Eakley, which is part of Sickles.
Okay.
Actually, the name is no longer what I was born in. It was called Exindine, Exindine.
Yeah.
But it's on my birth certificate. But Sickles became what the community was, and Eakley, and then there where I went to school. It's Sickles there where I went to school. But anyway, we moved here in 42, lived out there 3 years, and my dad bought the first 210 acres out here, which I live on to this day.
Right.
To this day. And we moved in December of 45. So I've been on this property now since 1945. Well, we had electricity out east of town, we had running water, and we had a bathroom. When we moved down here, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have water, and we had the outdoor job again.
Yeah.
So it was 3 years before we got electricity in 1948. But we got a telephone because my dad worked for the railroad, and telephones was everywhere.
Right.
Big party lines. And so anyway, my brothers Johnny and Donald and I, and one of my older brothers named Paul, was raised right down there on that corner where you turn this way. There was a big old house which sits right due south, a 10-acre space into this day. And that's where we grew up. And each morning, Johnny and Donald and I, Paul graduated from high school because he was 9 years older than I was. So he was out and gone, and the older brother was out and gone. So it was just Johnny, Donald, and I. And each morning, we went to the cow barn and we milked cattle. Mama had us at the barn by 5 o'clock in the morning. Rain or shine, overshoes to wear over your boots to keep your feet warm and dry. And then we would bring the milk in, and we would separate it, and then she would take that cream from that and take it to town and sell it. And she would make butter and sell it. But my mom, Donald's mom, while we were doing the milking, after we got old enough to really do the milking, by the time I was 10, we was all doing it, you know. And so she would have our hot breakfast ready and a lunch sack for each one of us. We had a scrambled egg and sausage sandwich most of the time. she made the cakes, and we would have a piece of cake and a fruit. And she sent us off every day to catch that school bus, which was just outside around 7 o'clock in the morning to be to school by 8.
Right.
So that's what we grew up doing. Ranch, garden. We had close to a half an acre of garden. We raised everything. My mother canned everything she could can, and when freezer deal come on, she froze everything she could. And before we even got a freezer, there was an ice house in town, and I'll show you where that was. And they had big lockers that we could store the meat and the hogs that we would butcher and take it up there. They would fix
Right.
it and then put the name on it, and you know what
Yeah.
you was getting.
Yeah.
Pork chops, or pork in or what have you. And so then we finally got a deep freeze, a 15-foot deep freeze. And so, but in the summertime, we were in the garden hoeing, cleaning, working, oh my, and shuck corn all day long. Shuck corn all day long and sat out there and snap beans, shell peas and stuff. It was, we were busy. We didn't have time to get in trouble.
Yeah.
We didn't have time to get in trouble.
No.
And that's what my brothers and I did all through even high school. Even my brother Donald took a job in, I don't know what year it was, you'll have to ask him, but there was a dairy just down the road, and that guy
Right.
would pick him up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Oh my goodness.
and he would go help that dairy farmer, and then he'd come back and get ready for school. And Johnny and I kept the rest of it going. But I grew up out here. I learned to drive on a farm-all tractor. Drive on that farm-all tractor, and Johnny and Dawn and I, Mama would send us, there was a little grocery store over there where I told you where that red barn is. There was a grocery store over there, and then the service station on the other side of that road. And we'd go over there and get whatever it was, like sugar or something.
Right.
And coming back home, I'd put the clutch in, man, we could run down the road like everything with that.
Yeah.
And them two boys hanging on for dear life. But we grew up driving the tractors. Nothing was out of our reach of doing brush hogging. Even myself, I did that. My brothers, we worked cattle, we raised horses. We had cattle, and we'd get them up, work them, spray them. Back then, an old gentleman by the name of Mr. Massengale, which was the ag teacher here years ago, started the first spraying deal
Okay.
out for the people, and we would get an appointment. Therefore, we'd have to get all our cattle up, have them in the lot, and then he'd come out and we'd have the different pens, put them in, he'd spray them, we'd let them go. And before that, when we were out east of town, on the old Kirk Road, when you get to 93 and you go on east, there was vats, dipping vats down there, that all the neighborhood people would line their cattle up down the road and take them to those dipping vats and then take them back home. But that was the way we kept flies and stuff down like that, a long time ago.
Right. So you mentioned catching the bus to go to school. You went to school in Hugo.
Went to school in Hugo all my 12 years of school,
Okay.
yes.
How many kids were there in your family total?
There was 5 kids.
Okay.
4 boys and 1 girl. I was the middle.
Okay.
I was the bossy one, asked Donald.
That's exactly the way it was in my family. There were 5 of us, and my sister was in the middle. And yes, I know. Okay. So there's a question here that says, "What your brothers and you do in your spare time?" It didn't sound like you had a lot of spare time.
We didn't, because we had to work. We either had an axe in our hand chopping persimmon sprouts, or we had a hoe out there, or we had chores to do.
Right.
Now, my brother Donald got to play football, and so did Johnny growing up, but all I ever did was ride my horses, work the cattle out here, and go to school. I was just plain countrified.
Okay. What's the earliest thing you can remember in your life? The first earliest one of the first earliest memories that stands out for you.
Well, it was back in Sickles, Oklahoma. Johnny and Donald and I was in the kitchen. We had a big round table. Had a big old 2-story house we lived in. And Mother was tying Donald's shoestrings. And he said, Mama, Mama, the barn's on fire.
Oh,
And he was 3 years old at that time.
okay.
And yes, the barn burned to the ground, but the hired hand got the livestock out, got the team of horses out. He was plowing with the team of horses, but he got to the barn and got all of the animals out. Supposedly a bird or a squirrel. There was that little thing in the top, they called them, made like that, had little, something carried a piece of glass or something up there, and the sun set it on fire.
Wow.
But now, I can remember going to school there at the first grade, you know, and walking. We had to walk a mile. My older brother and I walked to school every day. And I remember coming home one day that Dad met us about halfway with a new horse. A new horse. His name was Pinto.
Okay.
And he was 17 months old. And Dad had a halter on him and a lead rope. And he put my brother up on him. And that's a horse I rode till almost his death.
Wow.
But yeah, that's some of the earliest things I can remember. My brother Johnny got mad at everybody one day, packed his little what he called bag, and took off. Mama didn't see him, missed him, went hunting him, and he failed to put shoes on. Grass burrs. He was sitting side the road
Yep.
when she found it. He never did that again.
No, probably not. Your ancestry, a German, Irish, Native American.
Irish and German.
Okay.
Now that's what my daddy, let's see, my mother on the Irish side and my daddy on the German side.
Okay. And any ideas of when they came?
My dad came here in the 1700s, late 1700s.
Okay.
My mother, I have no clue about
Okay.
that.
You speak any other languages?
No, I do good speak English.
All right. Did you and your family have any special traditions or things that were just like holiday traditions or things?
Always big Thanksgivings, Mother's Days, Christmases, all the family. And I'm talking about the Short family. That was my
Right.
maiden name.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother entertained. Dad had 9 sisters and brothers.
Okay.
Used to have reunions here.
Right.
And they come out of every piece of woodwork and come here. You know, but my dad and his family got on the train either in Dothan, Alabama or Kissimmee, Florida. He can't remember because he was 13 years old.
Right.
And they rode by train to Valiant, Oklahoma. And they got off there. And Dad and a couple of sisters, brothers ended up around the Broken Bow area. And then one brother ended up in western Oklahoma, where I'm talking about. And then they got a government job. They was building Highway 66, Route 66.
Yeah.
So Dad's brother got a good job out there.
Mm-hmm.
Team of horses or mules and a slip. You know what a slip is?
Mm-hmm.
And got Daddy on. He got 25 cents a day. His brother got 50 cents because he had a team.
Yeah.
So they helped build Route 66 out there. If you know where it is, it's west and south of Oklahoma City I-40.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Your parents have both passed.
Oh
now?
yeah. Dad made 94 in 11 days and Mama made 89.
Wow. Man. Good long life.
Yes. And never was sick.
Huh.
Mama, I was at the real estate office and Mama called me and she said, Sister, you need to come home. I don't feel good. That was on a Wednesday. and she passed away on Saturday morning.
Hmm.
Dad had just been 8 months in the rest home because the doctor said he had to be up there due to sugar diabetes. And the rest home called me one morning about 10 o'clock because I'd been out showing, it was on a Saturday. I'd been out showing real estate that morning, and
Right.
at that time we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
And anyway, they got a hold of me. And Dad lasted till 6:45 that night. So neither one of my parents suffered any long
that's good.
illness at all.
That's
It
good.
was, that was what, and he had every sense in the world in his mind. Sharp
Right.
as a tack. And Mama was too.
Well, good. So who did you marry and how did you meet?
Well, I married a fellow by the name of Joe Caldwell from Poto, Oklahoma. He came down here with a fellow named S.J. Slack, who had several bulldozers clearing land back there in the 50s, around 55. And that was the time that the ranchers was beginning to get a little bit of money from the government and was clearing their land and building ponds. And we had Shorts Cafe,
Okay.
which is now Roma's.
Okay.
I grew up in that. When it was, I don't want to lose my train of thought. My dad and his brother bought that. It was a little grocery store owned by the Brauners, which was Miss Brauner that owned KIHN
Okay.
radio station.
Yeah.
Bought it from her parents. My parent bought it from her parents. It's a little grocery store, and so we didn't particularly like the grocery store, but the kids from junior high over there, I called it,
Mm-hmm.
junior high,
Yeah.
would come by there and want us to make them ham and cheese sandwich
Right.
out the back door
Mm-hmm.
because there's a grocery
Yeah.
store in front. So the men decided to make a little cafe out of it.
Right.
So it was Shorts Cafe and Dairy Freeze. We had ice cream in the front,
Yeah.
2 little open windows,
Mm-hmm.
and had booths. I don't think we had any tables. And booths in there. And that's the way we got started. I met Joe. That's how he came through there on the construction deal.
Okay.
And I waited on him.
Yeah.
And I took him. Yeah, that's how we met. That's how we
Well,
met.
that's
Yeah,
neat.
and the thing was, we met in February, we married in June, and we were together 53 years till he passed away. So we had 4 children, but that's the way we passed away. He didn't care a whole lot for the restaurant work. I did the front work and stuff,
Right.
you know. And he worked in the back as a cook and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
What have you. Super guy. A good dad. Super guy.
So tell us about your kids.
Well, I have 4 kids. See the picture of them?
Yeah.
Now that's my kids. 3 girls and 1 boy. We'll take them in order starting on the left. That's Terry. He's with me in the real estate business now.
Okay.
The next is Peggy, my daughter. Lives at Fort Towson. And she's married to Mike Easterwood and has 2 boys and 3 granddaughters now. And she also works for the plant down there.
Okay.
What do you call it? International
Oh,
Paper
International
Company.
Paper, yes.
Yeah, she works down there. The next boy is Tracy, my son, and he loves driving the 18-wheeler. Been doing that for 20-some years. He
Okay.
has some acreage over here, and he has 2 boys. He's not married. Terry's not married either, but Peggy is. And then there's Scotty on the end, works for that big oil refinery down there in Texas City or someplace
Yeah,
down
yeah.
there. And he's married and got 2 stepdaughters and got his first grandchild.
Oh.
And Tracy has 3 grandchildren there, and Terry's got a passel of grandchildren.
Okay. Nice family. Nice
Oh,
family.
I'll tell you what, I love that picture. I wouldn't
Oh,
take
yeah.
for it. I would. That was taken right out here in the backyard, side yard on Thanksgiving Day, and just that it was taken on my property. I know every one of those trees come up from the nut,
Mhm.
you know.
Yep. So, talk to us about when you got started in the real estate business and.
Well, I did a lot of things before that.
Okay.
My husband had the bulldozer, and he had a big red Mack truck, long trailer, and he'd load that bulldozer on it, take it from place to place to work. So one day he said to me, he said, Mama, he said, I need you to take the truck in today in the trailer because I need new tires put on it. And I said, I called him Caldwell. I said, I can't drive that thing. He said, you can drive a tractor, you can drive that. I said, okay. And so he went off to work, left me with the truck.
Yeah.
And it either had 8 or 10 speeds. I don't remember which it was. But I was good on clutching anyway, okay, and everything. And anyway, I drove that thing to town and got those tires fixed where, you know, where the tire mart is now, around there where Rawls it, not
Yeah.
Rawls, but yeah. There, okay, there was an old service station there. And that's who we did business with. Well, he took off the tires, put the new ones on for me, and I come home with that truck and trailer. Anyway, I get a call the next day, and it's Simon Parker, I don't know whether he was superintendent at that time or principal.
Right.
And he called me, and he said, Leoma, I got a job for you. And I said, what? He said, you're going to drive a school bus. And I said, well, I can't drive a school bus, Mr. Parker. And he said, I guess you can. I saw you driving that 18-wheeler today. He said, school starts in August. You be there.
Huh.
So, that was out at the VOTEC. So I went out to the VOTEC, took the training, passed it with flying colors, and I was a school bus driver for about 5 years or longer.
Huh.
And so I enjoyed that. I got to carry the band and those like that. We went to museums in Tulsa
Right.
and places, and all the football games I made, you know, like that. And I was the first woman school bus driver in Choctaw County.
That's good.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was a landman. That was in the 80s then. I drove the school bus in the 70s, 69 in the 70s.
Right.
And then I was a landman for a fella out of Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Now that's leasing oil and gas royalties.
Right.
My area was from Soper, 3 miles on the other side of Boswell, that's county line,
Right.
3 miles west, to this road you turned on to come to me.
Okay.
That was my territory.
Right.
And I tell you what, I found out then who owned all the minerals in Choctaw County.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised who some of them were. I'm not going to call no names.
I understand.
But I took as much as $50,000 in checks to them.
Wow.
But I did that for nearly a year. We leased up this Choctaw County from Red River to Push County.
Yeah.
That was our and the cutoff was 16 east, which is the Willowpool Curve Road.
Okay.
After that, you get into 17.
Right.
Okay. So I did that for a year, and then, let's see, I'm sitting here one day and saying something, talking to Joe, and he said, Mama, that's what he called me. After you married a while, it's Mama and Papa or Mama,
Yeah,
called
yeah.
him something like that. And he said, you're going to real estate school. I said, what? I said, Caldwell, what do you mean? He said, you're going to real estate school. So he sent me to real estate school. They was doing a course down here, Lally, Dan Lally, L-A-L-L-I, was the instructor at the VOTEC.
Right.
So I went through all of that, passed my test, and went to work with Floyd Foley Real Estate there on the hill
Right.
where he was. And then you have to stay a year before you can apply for your broker's license, which means you're the boss of your own company.
Mm-hmm.
So when my year was up, I had to go back to school, take all that training. And let me tell you, it's not easy.
Right.
That is not easy because they can hook and crook you anyway and sue you out of the
Oh, yeah.
kazoo if you don't dot the I's and cross the T's right.
Mm-hmm.
And ethics is one big thing in real estate,
Mm-hmm.
and that's honesty. I mean, above all. Anyway, I would go drive back and forth to Oklahoma City up there by the Capitol and take that schooling up there. And it was hard. I mean, it was hard. Because back then, we had to do closing statements, we had to do the interest rate, we had to do all of that and make it balance.
Right.
So anyway, I'd come back home after studying up there for the weekend, come back and work and then go back. And anyway, the instructor up there told us, I'm going to give you 300 questions. You need to study these hard because there'll be 100 of them going to be your test.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I went up there, and of course you had to send your picture up there to them. And it was real funny. They barely opened the door to look at you. And then
Yeah.
they got your photo in front of them.
Hmm.
I mean, they're looking at you hard.
Yeah.
And when they decide that's who you are, they let you in. And then they raise up your pants leg. They go
Yeah.
up your sleeve.
Yeah.
They, you have to give them all the papers. No pencils can you have or
Mhm.
anything like that.
Right.
And so we get ready for our test. And so when I got through with it, I come back home. They have so many minutes on each thing you can be working on those questions. And I guarantee it is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I come home, and a few days, a week or so later, Joe calls me at work and he says, Mama, got a letter from the real estate today. And I said, really? He said, yeah. And I said, well, open it. He said, I already did. He said, you flunked. I said, oh my, Caldwell, we got to study some more. And he said, no, Mama, you passed. I said, I'm going to wring your neck when I get home. Oh, that was such a blow to me when he said that, you know, because I've worked so hard on that. And what they do is they give you 4 questions, and only one of them is right.
Oh. Okay.
And we were taught, and usually, Sydney, it'll work almost on anything. The first thing comes in your mind will be right. If you think about it, you put a doubt up there to the right question and you'll answer it wrong. That's the only way I made that test was what came into my mind first.
Right.
So I've been in real estate now 34 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been, I started out on 2nd Street right across from Vester Songer's office.
Mm-hmm.
And then our phone rang one day, and I don't know whether you can use this or not, but anyway, I give credit to him. Mike Brewer called me,
Okay.
and he said, Leoma, I'm ready for you to move from where you are. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I want you to buy the Weatherford property. I think the bank had repossessed it.
Right.
I said, well, I ain't got the money to do that. You know, I hadn't been there very long, and they wanted money for that.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I told you you're going to buy it. I'm behind you. So you come by and get the key and go look at it. So I went down there, and there was a hole about this big in the roof.
Yeah.
You know, it leaked. And the commode was all stopped up. They was using a 5-gallon bucket.
Oh my.
Oh, yes, it was horrible. And it was nasty, filthy inside, nasty, nasty, filthy. Anyway, I went back and talked to him. He said, okay, sign the paper here. And I said, Mike, I got to put a new roof on this thing. I got to do everything. He said, just sign it, Leoma. So that's what Mike Brewer did for me.
Yeah.
That's what he done for me. And I've
great.
been, that was the old German service station at one time.
Okay.
That was the service station there at one time. So it's now real estate place, and if the materials ever come in, Terry's gonna build a new building because we've outgrown it.
Oh, all right.
Big time. He's done got
Oh,
part of
yeah.
a pad back there behind
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
And so he's gonna build a new building. So I worked for many years by myself. Donna Milson here in town worked with me a while. Butch Larry Moore, which we just love the both of them. And then here, my health was sort of going down. And one day Terry come in there and I said, "Hey, would you like to come in with your mom?" He said, "Well, yeah, I would." I said, "Well, get your license back." He said, "Mother, I've never quit." He got his license before I did.
Well,
But he went to work for Gorman Hopkins, which
yeah.
was nothing. He never got nothing.
Hmm.
So he went back to construction work.
Right.
But he had always renewed his license when they come up. So he went off and renewed his license, got him, and he went under me for a while. And my health was sort of going down. It's a lot better now. And so I turned it over to him.
Okay.
So, Caldwell Real Estate Studio.
Right. What are some of the more interesting people of the county that you might want to talk to us about today for just a couple minutes? Some of the notable people, most important people you can think of that you've known over the years that you've lived here.
Well, I'll tell you what. You go down Broadway Street there, where Ace Electric is, used to be Eastland's there. There was a store named Lambert's next to it. Went on down, there was Sherman's in there, and then there was People's Store on down there.
Yeah.
The Gold Fetters and what have you, had all of that stuff there. Always admired those people because they had a big sense of business about them.
Right.
And Lambert's was at that time the only ladies dress shop in town.
Okay.
And anyway, those people, Mr. Massengale, which was the ag teacher, made a big impression on me how he taught the young men, the young
Right.
boys, which are two of them was my brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked Smith Luton Jr. there at the Palace Drug Store. He was a personal friend. If I needed any help with medicine, you know, he was there just like Joel Mashburn was till he passed away. Dr. Fountain is a man that I love beyond all measure. At the hospital, he operated on me when I was 15, took appendix out.
Okay.
Dr. Fountain delivered all 5 of my children. You hear me say 5 because we lost one.
Okay.
And Dr. Fountain, I had a lot of admiration for him as a man of the community. And the hospital at that time was the back part of where the Village Inn Motel is.
Okay.
Right there, it would have been right south of
Yeah.
Clayton Avenue Baptist Church.
Yeah.
A white, like, stucco building there. And I don't know, I always thought the world of Simon Parker as a leader in our community. He was just a great man, I thought. And most everybody else did too. And Buffy's brother was well regarded the same way.
Right.
I've had a lot of respect for Joel Mashburn. Joe used to help him play baseball as a little kid, so we watched him grow up.
Right.
And a fine young man, I think, of this community.
What would you consider some of the most important historical events of your lifetime?
Going to the rodeos when I was a young girl, riding my horse, driving the pickup and pulling the one-horse trailer with my one horse, and riding in the parades. Oh, goodness sakes alive. Back then, Danny, Gene Autry come to town one time.
He did.
Gene Autry.
Okay.
He borrowed Merle Holton's wife's white horse and rode in the parade.
Huh.
Yep. And he sure did. But that was something there's old photos of that, and the street was full.
Right.
And on Saturday nights, they got pictures of the streets on Saturday night. Both sides of the street. I'm talking about up and down East Duke, West Duke, Broadway Street, North and South.
Yeah.
You'd have to drive around time after time after time to get a parking place.
Wow.
See, there was 3 theaters.
Mm-hmm.
The Erie,
Yeah.
the Ritz.
Mm-hmm.
You know where the Ritz was?
Mr. Baggett told us, showed us
Okay,
pictures.
okay, the Ritz was there on Broadway Street, about middle. Then the Dixie Theater was down to the west,
Okay.
behind People Store, back down there.
Right.
That was the Westerns. That's where we went.
Okay.
On Saturday nights, Mama would bring us 3 kids,
Mm-hmm.
give us a quarter each, a dime to get in,
Yeah.
and we had 15 cents to spend, milk duds, and a soda pop,
Yeah.
and popcorn. That was a nickel each.
Okay.
But that's what we got into the show with.
Right.
Okay, she did the grocery shopping and what have you. And time the movie was over, she was through, and we would walk back to where the car was and wait on her there.
Yeah.
But a big pastime was people watching.
Okay.
I love to watch people. I can tell who's going down the street from their backside, how they walk.
Yeah.
Yep, everybody's got a distinct walk. But yes, town would be so crowded from end to end. And of course, at that time, there wasn't Walmarts and other places like that. So,
Any other things you would like to tell us about the history of Choctaw County or things that have happened in the county that just seem to stand out?
well, I can remember when they built Lake Texoma over here, which is out of our county. And I can remember the land that was all taken for the Hugo Lake.
Right.
That was a big, big deal. Now that red barn house that I told you about
Yeah.
come out of the bottoms.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
That fella, I'm not gonna call his name,
Right.
knew what was coming. He had a big ranch down there.
Yeah.
He got real busy and he built that big 2-story house.
Okay.
He numbered every board.
Huh.
And when they bought his land for the lake, it was tore down piece by piece,
Right.
hauled up here to this place, rebuilt,
Huh.
and still standing today. So that's, you know, and the Corps of Engineer, there was a fellow by the name of Bill Burkhalter, Bill Barnhouse, lived down around the Valiant area. At the time was working with the Chamber of Commerce, and he was a big help with David Davies getting all those cabins down there on the Hugo Lake.
Okay.
I was a part of that because I was with Little Dixie on the board at that time.
Right.
And we hired David Davies out of Arkansas to come here for tourism.
Okay.
And he parked his stuff out here, our house. And one day he came and got his boat and went to the lake, and he was so surprised to see that lake and everything, and then to see all the picnic tables and stuff and fire, you know, cooking deals. There's all grown up all around it. They built it and it's never,
Oh.
yeah. So we got to work on that, and you know, the Corps of Engineers helped us on that, and Little Dixie. David Davies was the engineer part of that thing, and what was his name? He was head of Little Dixie at that time. Bob. Shoot, his son lives right over here. Anyway, they built those cabins down there, and now they, you know, got some houses down there.
Yeah.
But that was a big deal, and we had to fight like heck to keep that, because we had a lady up there with the Water Resources Board that wanted to take that money away from us for that lake.
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was terrible what she tried to do. But we beat her.
Yep.
We beat her. We got it. So that is something outstanding. Remember when Wes Watkins built the agriculture building?
Okay.
Wes Watkins, he was a representative, I believe he was.
Yep.
Well liked man. I think he was from McAllister or Ada or someplace up there. But he's got a lot of roots here with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Watkins.
He does.
Yeah. And that was something that helped our town. We've had some good city managers and some real bad ones.
The building of the turnpike.
The building of the turnpike, I didn't have anything to do with that. Jake Pullen got the bypass name for him on it. But at that time, Gene Thompson was the mayor of the town, mayor or manager, whichever. Anyway, he got all those houses tore down on Main Street,
Right.
West Main.
Yeah.
Got all them tore down to where the restaurant is, that Mexican restaurant is there now,
Yeah.
and got that 4-lane. Well, it
Okay.
stopped right there. Well, when David Walters was governor, and you know, David got himself in a peck of trouble. But anyway, Stan Stamper and Butch Palmer and I took him around because we wanted it 4-laned from there on to the bypass.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
2-lane and all the little skinny towns, you know,
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got the money for that to be 4-lane there.
Okay.
That's why that is 4-lane there. So you gotta give Butch Palmer, which he was president of the First United Bank out there, and Stan Stamper with the newspaper, and myself with the Chamber of Commerce at that time. Anyway, we rode David Walters around, and the sheriff, Atkins, was in his patrol car. It broke down on the way.
Oh, goodness.
Oh shoot, that was funny.
Yeah.
Had to get some new police cars around here, you know. But I think one of the things that I'm proud of, and I was discussing that with the sheriff the other day, was that Lucinda Stanfield and a fellow by the name of Hammonds out by Messer area and me took it up on ourselves. Somebody had mentioned about a new 1-cent sales tax for Choctaw County to help the roads. The ambulances were breaking down everywhere they went. And the straw that broke the camel's back was over here by Soper. And they went over there to pick up a very sick person. And the ambulance gets stuck in the road.
Oh, my goodness.
And so a neighbor has to come pull the ambulance out. I don't remember whether the person lived or died, but that just gave Lucinda and Mr. Hammonds and me food to go out and talk about. So we would go to Boswell,
Right.
3 miles west of Boswell, and we made every joint, every station, every grocery store, every place we could, senior citizens and all, clear to Swink. And we got that passed. We got a 33% out of that 1-cent sales tax. But what we found out in going to all those places, instead of roads, they wanted money for the ambulance and the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
So it was 33%, that was 11% for each one of the commissioners. And then it was divided otherwise. Now it has been sort of ciphered off to the library,
Right.
to the ag deal,
Yeah.
to the rodeo, and I forget now what else. Out of that, what we worked our butts off to get for this county. So, I'm not going to tell you the problem I'm getting ready to have, and I've done made voice over that, and I will make more voice over it.
That's all right.
But that is something we worked for, we needed. The ambulances were just totally gone. And our county needed the sheriff's building down there.
Yeah.
And we just needed a lot of things that was helped by that 1 cent sales tax. And of course, I give all the credit to Brent Shane, I believe it is, and Marilyn Custer for getting the library here, that Don Reynolds thing.
Right.
They worked awfully hard to get that done.
So you're still in business today?
Oh yeah, full time, 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock, every day.
And what we can do to make it bigger.
Yeah, and I may be 86 in July, so
Goodness.
I walk a quarter of a mile first thing every morning when I get up, and then I walk another mile, 2 miles every day then.
Well, what's something that people that haven't been to our county or don't know wouldn't know much about our county, what's something you think they should know about Choctaw County?
Well, I tell you right now, first thing is the friendliest people in town. We welcome everybody. We're happy to have you. But we take pride in showing the cemetery. Now back years ago, Danny, we used to have the train that come in here, usually 3 cars, loaded with people. And they would eat dinner here. Most of the time they always ate at Penson's, which is, the same restaurant today. And we would get school buses and we would take them to the cemetery, the school system, the circus grounds, and show them, and then feed them. And of course, at the depot, they got to go through the depot from end to end and get all that culture of the depot there. Because back when my dad was here, engineer, it went 4 ways: to Ashdown, Arkansas, to Ardmore, to Fort Smith, and I forget now the other direction, Paris, Texas, I guess. Because 2,500 people a day would come through here in the 40s and 50s. And that's why the depot and those girls, fed them there and everything. That was something. But now we did that, and that, what hurt and had us to stop was the insurance got so high.
Really?
They couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford it. But that was something, and I remember one day we went into Clay Penson's, a restaurant there, which is Roma's now, and I had about 42 people with me from one of the bus loads, and I'm in line there, and Clay said to me, he said, "Leoma, have you told them how handsome I am?" I said, "No, 'cause you're not, but I told them how good the food was." Because he had a good meal.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he had a buffet there and it was delicious food, everything. Mary Fico was one of the best cooks too out there.
All right, that is it.
Country school was down here, and the only house out here was right up here on this hill. There wasn't no other houses when we lived down here. It's just all bare land.
Yeah.
All of this stuff has been made to happen since I've been out here. Anyway, you can see in that set of trees right there, you'll see a concrete there in a minute. You'll see the steps. See it right there?
Yeah.
See the steps? That's called Eggshell School. Eggshell School. Right there. This was a railroad man here named Rue, R-U-E. Long time ago. They've been dead forever, ever, ever. And that's Joel Mashburn over there.
Yeah.
And John Higginbotham here.
Right.
And John Worthy, we sold him that house up there.
Right down there.
Yeah, and Brent Fortson built that house right over there.
Okay.
So here's where I told you you'll turn to go to Donald's.
Yeah.
Go right straight down this road.
Okay.
Another full mile. Turn back to the south at least a half a mile.
Yeah.
But wait till you see the John Deere
Okay.
thing, okay?
Yeah.
Used to be an old pump station out here a long time ago. water deal long before they got the wells in Hugo.
Right.
And you can see part of this old building here.
That's what this building was?
Yeah, this is old pump station, and you can see.
So I've always wondered what that was.
And out here, let's see, it's on down here just a little bit farther. It's back in there someplace. It's back in there. The pond, big old concrete.
Oh, yeah.
Water deal was out there. Yeah. You know, we had 5 wells here at Hugo at one time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this, that house right there, that frame house,
Yeah.
was moved from right over there on a hill when they made this
Okay.
turnpike. They
Okay.
picked it up and moved it.
Huh.
Yeah. It's called the Holton place. It's
Right.
Tom Holton, I forget how many kids he had. Merle Holton was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know you heard of Merle Holton.
Yeah.
But you can tell that there used to be a hill here, and he lived on that hill, and they picked that house up and moved it right over there.
Huh.
Yeah, they moved it right over there. I've been making this drive for umpteen years. I mean, umpteen years. Yeah, Doc Glenn, that's where she was raised.
Okay.
That's where she was raised. And right here's where one of the old Holtons lived for years and years and years.
Right.
Right there. Now somewhere here in this onion factory deal
Yeah.
is where the drive-in theater was,
Yeah.
and somewhere in here was where that Western Cafe was out here.
Okay.
Out here.
I remember the drive-in.
Yeah.
I went to the drive-in when I was a kid.
Yeah, the drive-in was out here. And this thing was not here at all.
Right.
That was not here at all. And this was just all cow pasture. Really, it
Yeah.
was sale barn stuff. The Holtons and stuff
Yeah.
owned all of that property and stuff out here like crazy. Sure glad this fellow Wiry, that lumber company, moved in here. And of course, this sale barn is someplace I used to go almost every Friday when I had cattle out there. And I remember these people when they first moved in here, named Doc Sayer now, when they bought down, oh golly, his name just slipped out of his wife and children was killed in an old car accident south of Hugo. And Doc Sayer bought it. But here's where the old original sale barn was. Henry Henderson
Okay.
had this sale barn, him and Merle Holton and another fella, Clyde Johnson.
Yeah.
Big sale barn there. And so anyway, Clyde Johnson died. Merle went to doing cattle, resold it and what have you. And Billy Perrin bought into it, and now Minyard has it. Minyard has it now. But this was all just open land out here. The Baskets that lived out west of town donated the land up there for the Golden Age home.
Yeah.
They had a lot of land back then. And right down here on this curve was the Wagon Wheel restaurant, set probably right out there on the east side of this building. Mrs. Castleberry had that. Long years ago.
Yeah.
Good steaks in there. Yeah, and this was L.B. Anderson John Deere Company when I was a kid.
Right.
L.B. Anderson there. We sure didn't have none of them growth things.
No.
Didn't have, I'm ashamed of them things, I'm telling you. And of course there was houses all up and down these streets. It just house after house after house. And I think Mike Ford still owns that one.
Huh.
He won't do nothing with it, clean it up. But right here was where the hospital was. Right there, yeah. There was a 2-story house back there. Was a rooming house on this corner.
Okay.
This is where we had Short's Cafe and restaurant, right here.
Right.
Yeah. Always been a service station here and stuff. And service station here.
Mm-hmm.
Always seems like they was, and this was Herschel Bright's International Tractor Company was there. And of course, you know, the depot and all of that stuff down there. And this was the Roadrunner Tire Company here for years and years. Okay, Ward's Ice Cream Company was right behind this building right up here.
Okay.
Right here. And you get ice cream and ice, blocks of ice there. Behind this building. There was a fella that had a service station here on this corner.
Yeah.
There was a service station right there on that corner. When I drove the school bus, I could drive into it and out of it with that big old school bus. And Baggett's, did he tell you that his daddy had the car dealership right here in this big old building?
Yep.
Okay, service station here, service station there, Baggett right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And see them old tore down buildings down there?
Yeah.
That was, at one time, Cooley Laundry was down there.
Okay.
Laundry company in one of those big old buildings. I don't remember what else was in them. But I forgot to show you one thing. I'm gonna turn myself around. The old Webb Hotel. Did anybody ever tell you where that was?
I'm sure Mr. Baggett mentioned it, but I don't remember.
I was raised in the country. I go anywhere.
There you go.
Anywhere I want to go. I don't care. I am not bound by anything. In fact, I stopped at both stop signs today because of you. Yeah. They put them up after me being out here all those years. I hate them. I hate them. But I want to know how many hotels was in this place. Goodyear Tire Store was right over there.
Okay.
Goodyear Tire Store for umpteen years.
Yeah.
Right on up there next to it was Kay's Grocery Store. Romy Stell owned it. It's named for Judy K. Strickland.
Okay.
Her daddy had it. Then Hartwell's jewelry store was right on up there. And then there was a drugstore on the corner up there. Graves Drugstore on the corner up there. But here, on the side of this building tore down, is where the old Webb Hotel was.
Okay.
Right here, and at that time there wasn't none of this building here.
Oh.
You know? And we kids would walk from junior high over here, stop at the Webb Hotel. They had the best peanut patties in this whole town.
Okay.
The best peanut patties. And here's the old building that my mother would bring the cream to.
Okay.
When it was Fox, it was Gladstein's Creamery first, and then Fox Creamery. And the Fox that had that is kin to these kids that own this property and redone that at one time. But and I'm just driving you around. If you get bored, just tell me.
We're fine.
You know, they haven't improved the streets one bit. They haven't improved the streets one bit. And there's Hugo High School over there.
Yep.
Right on there where I graduated from. That was a wonderful day. That was the first day I got to drive the home car. Yeah, drive the car to go in and get my diploma. Sure did. Okay, PSO here. Behind here was a big ice deal back here. This is where we were able to bring our meat, chicken and beef and all of that kind of stuff like that. That's where we got to bring that. And Mama would come out and get a basket load and take it home and put it in the top of the refrigerator, you know, and stuff like that. But everybody, in that Ward's ice cream, you could go buy big chunks of ice there.
Right.
Big chunks of ice there. So there's just a whole lot of history to this old town.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Charles Baggett and him lived right along in here.
Okay.
Could have been this house right here. But it, Lord, see, that's when they're holes out there.
Yep.
Charles Baggett was raised right in there someplace.
Okay.
From the school here, yeah. And right down here, which burnt down, right here,
Yeah.
used to be a big old apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a beauty shop in that complex.
Really?
Yeah, there was a beauty shop in it. And of course there was, these houses was all nice back when I was a kid, you know. They all looked nice and neat and clean like that little house right there. And this street here, right on this end, here was a guy, Billy Simpson.
Okay, yeah.
Her husband run this right here.
Okay.
He had, you'd go in there and buy any kind of bolt, nut, or what have you.
Right, right.
But, gosh, what was his name? Anyway, her husband had the last shop on that end. And right in here was Lemon's Produce. You buy potatoes and onions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For the restaurants and what have you. Here was the cleaning shop, Cherry's cleaning shop here. Sad to see it all like that. Look at that sign up there.
Yep, Golden Rule Grocery.
Yeah, Golden Rule Grocery. Now, I'm not old enough to know what was behind that. I do not know what was behind that.
Okay.
But we had Graves drugstore right there.
Yeah.
We had Palace drugstore right here. We had the 5 and Dime Eastlands right here. And of course, we had jewelry store Davidson's right across the street there. We had Lambert's, which is a dress shop. And then we started in here with the Jewish people that owned all of that property there, the Goldfetters and stuff. And I'll tell you right now, those floors, been in there on Saturday night when they're getting ready to close, they put a red stuff down, and there's wooden floors, and they get in there and clean them, and everything was just as clean. You walk around, it was nice. It was just a hometown store.
Yeah.
But anyway, what are they doing? Selling this stuff outside?
I don't know what they're having.
I don't either. But see, all of this went all down here, people store stuff.
Yeah.
But down here is where the Belmont Hotel was.
Okay.
Down here on this corner. And it burned to the ground. The Belmont. And right there where that car's driving away was a shop that worked on bulldozers and all that kind of stuff. My husband used him. He, bless his heart, his name was Chester Curley. He finally passed away. This has always been here. Pepsi-Cola plant used to be right here.
Okay.
Let me see. This is the first, only place I ever knew that it was a liquor store. You know, I was never around none of that stuff, okay? But you could drive through. This was a liquor store. Let's see, what was his name? What was his name? Can't think of it right now. Wallace was his name. Wallace was his name. And of course there was all these little, what we refer to as shotgun houses up and down here, down the street till we got rid of them, okay?
Right.
Yeah. And right over there on where that green grass is, more or less, was a little meat market named Morgan's Meat Market.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah.
And somewhere right in there was Morgan's Meat Market. Now, here's what I sort of want you to see and visualize.
All right.
The Chamber of Commerce there is where the fire station used to be. It's 2 trucks downstairs.
Okay. Yeah.
2 trucks, had an arch like this over it.
Oh.
Then on the top was the health department.
Okay.
Was the health department. And on this side was a little hotel named Gilmore.
Okay.
Now, that's what I remember about this when I was young.
Right,
And
right.
of course, that's always been Wallace Motors.
Oh, yeah.
Always been Wallace Motors there. So, of course, that's always been the bank property over there.
Right.
I don't remember what was down here when the fire station went in down here.
Okay.
You know, I just don't remember that. Don't remember what that was. Stop at them stop signs. Used to be a welding deal and this old rock building here.
Right.
But now this used to be Pratt's grocery store.
Okay.
Betty Jean Cannon, that was married to Henry Cannon, that was her mama and daddy.
Okay.
They had the Pratt grocery here. And then Baggett moved over, had his deal over here and his cars over here. Baggett was there. And then Patterson, where you see the bricks out there, that was a big old hardware store in there called Patterson's Hardware Store. And that was a big family. Right here stretching all the way was a large 2-story apartment place.
Oh, okay.
And then there was, next to our building over there, next to John Munt's really, was another rock apartment thing over there. Apartments. But that's what I remember about this, because Joe bought a couple of cars through Herman Baggett there. Lon Kyle had his law office right here years and years and years ago. And then Bob Rayburn was there, and then Bob moved on down the street. Hacker's hardware store was right there on that grassy part of the corner. Hacker, he was kin to Joel Mashburn.
Okay.
Yeah, Joel Mashburn. And then Cood Camel started this funeral home back here when I was a kid.
Right.
And then come on up through his family, and then Prater's got it, and what have you, you know. And there was a service station here on that corner. And there was a paint shop right there by paint. And these were just all houses here.
Right.
This was just, all of this was just homes up and down the street on both sides till they began to buy out to people and turn it into commercial and what have you. So that's okay. Where down here at Brahms, where that car's driving out, was where the Plaza Courts were.
Okay.
That's where the Plaza Courts was. And of course, Kentucky Fried Chicken was right back there when it first came, but this was the Plaza Courts. And right in here, part of this land here is where the big old 2-story building.
The big.
What was the name?
The big old house.
Yeah, I got a picture of it in my office. The lady painted it and then made a print for me. All of these was fine homes up and down this street here. All fine homes, okay? And this was
the Caldwells lived right there.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
And this was the milling. That's the only part left of it, of the milling company here, feed and stuff there that Dr. Mike has. And of course, my sakes, I don't remember what was out here except just houses. And stuff, but right up here where the Sonic is was the Sinclair service station.
Okay.
George Bond, that was the name of that. Right in here, Sinclair service station. And I don't remember what was over here. You know, I mean, I did. There's been a restaurant there for as long as I can remember. Started out with the name of Tyler.
Really?
Tyler McGuire had this place over here, a restaurant and liquor store. And the Red Star's been here since before me.
Okay.
That's the only thing older than me, okay? So, hey, Lordy. But all of this was cow pasture, okay?
Right.
Just plain cow pasture around here. I think Charles Baggett still owns this little portion of land right down here.
I think you're right.
I think so. I think he still owns that little portion there.
Wait, what year did Walmart come in there?
You know, I don't know, but I sold them the land.
Okay.
Stan Stamper and myself, and probably Butch Palmer. I was the realtor on it.
Yeah.
For the old Walmart back then. No, the new Walmart.
Oh, for the new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was horse pasture around here. Just plain horse pasture. Hannah, the guy named Hannah had that. Smith owned it, but Hannah rented it.
Okay.
And right on down this road at one time was a dairy. So, you know, I'm about run out of whatever I can.
Run out of town.
No, what I can think about, you know.
Okay.
Big old house set up here. What was the name of them people? I say big old 2-story house. Cecil Callings.
Okay.
Callings, Cecil Callings. Had that. Yep. The milling, not the milling, but the plastic works in there.
Right.
They was sort of like a white stucco.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd forgotten. You're right.
And the superintendent's office is where we had the post
Yep,
office. They
yep.
stole it from the south of town and brought it
Really?
over here. Yeah, years ago.
Huh.
I still remember our box number
I
416.
hadn't heard about that. Huh.
Yeah. Well, when we first moved here, they had a line of little merchant houses and businesses there on West Main Street.
Yeah.
And I was told the tale that they had the post office over there started out, and then they moved it over here. And so, therefore, town went this way instead of that way.
Okay.
Now, that's what I was told years ago.
Right.
That's somebody older than me. And of course, Stamper's been here a long time ago. There was a big old building. There was a bakery right there where the blue awning thing is.
Yeah.
And there was a big bakery over here.
Huh.
And a law office at the top of it, and it burned down one night.
goodness.
It burned the man up in it.
Oh.
Yeah. And this has been a bank ever since I can remember. It started out as Citizen State under Charlie Hassens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, here's the old Erie.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the Goodyear's
Yeah.
tire and shop there. Yeah. Forever. But that hotel was right here called the Webb, W-E-B-B.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Best peanut patties in town. This was Gladstein's cannery. We had a cannery here.
Oh, okay.
Gladstein's cannery there. We've owned this piece of property since 1948
Right.
and built that. And then a fellow by the name of Dotson come in here and built the motel.
Okay.
Named Dotson, D-S-O-N. There was a big old two-story rent-out rooms for people who worked here.
Right.
There was houses here and stuff, and I sakes lifetime. Used to be the best chiropractor in the world, had his business. He
Really?
built that building right there. Yep. Mike Ford's been there forever.
Yeah.
We had Ford Grocery Company, we had Kay's Food Store, we had Pratt's down there, and had Red Wine's out there where, Red Wine is where the clinic is out there east of town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all this was cow pasture. My property starts right here at this corner
Okay.
and goes all the way over there where I am,
Yeah.
a little bit west of me. This was all cow pasture around here.
Now,
But that big old two-story house used to sit right there behind that pecan tree right there.
Really?
Out there on that ridge, right
Yeah.
out there is where I was raised. Climbed this old oak tree when it was young. My
wow.
brothers and I did. And our 10-acre garden that we had about a half acre or so out there. We had this 10 acres there.
Yeah.
This is where we raised our garden all them years.
Mm.
Man alive. Whew. They dug out a whole lot of land there to put that house
Yeah.
in. But I remember the day we moved out here in December of 1945. It was a cold day. Cold day. I hope I pointed out some things
Yeah,
that
you did.
You might not have been aware of that maybe you could put in your cap and think about it. And maybe-
Cross-reference things.
Yeah, especially the Webb and the Belmont,
Yeah.
Gilmore,
Yeah.
you know, all of those. I'm telling you what, there was a lot of traffic come through this town.
Mhm. There would have been.
Yeah, there was a lot of good business in this town. And I'm ready for it to blossom again, okay?
Yep.
I'm ready for it to blossom again. Now, I planted every one of these pecan trees in the front yard.
Wow.
There's, I think, 18 of them. 18 of them. 18. So, sort of happy about it now.
Yeah.
And you can just pull straight through and make the little circle and
All right.